This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is January 16th, 2025. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin Tucker, what is going on, man? How are you?
You know, Jonathan, to be honest, it's already been a very long week. I'm tired. And my favorite basketball team just lost by 30. So, these things happen. It's part of an NBA season. But yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm glad I get to talk with you about it and hopefully make some fellow Orlando Magic fans feel a little bit better after tonight's debacle in Milwaukee.
Well, for the three of you that are actually listening to this episode or watching on YouTube, we're going to be full upfront. This is not going to be, or at least we're not going to plan for this to be a longer episode with just the one game to talk about and it really just being a you-know-what show. We're just not in a super talkative mood. And I know we did an episode a couple of weeks ago where it was kind of like a therapy session. I don't think we're going to do that. There's going to be a healthy level of frustration and maybe some things that we're going to vent a little bit and talk a little bit. But yeah, please forgive us if this is not an hour-long plus episode that you may be accustomed to. As the Magic showed us tonight, it's a very long season, and sometimes you just kind of mail it in. Not that we're mailing it in, but it definitely is the feeling of like, this is a really long season. Tonight sucked. Do we want to sit here and try to expand upon film that? For the most part, they're going to go over some key points from this game and then probably never revisit this film again, given the way that they played, given the current state of the health of this roster. For a number of reasons, this is one of those that, as they say, you kind of just flush and forget about. But we do have a couple of things to talk about right off the top here. This Friday, oh man, tonight was very inspiring leading into this game. But this Friday, when the Magic take on the Boston Celtics in Boston, we are going to be at Stadium Club, located at Caribe Royale, Orlando. Address is 8101 World Center Drive. We've been talking and hyping up this watch party for the last several weeks. Definitely going to be one of the sickest venues that we've ever had a watch party for. I was talking to the team over at the Magic, and they've just gotten a ton of RSVPs for this watch party. So it's going to be an electric atmosphere. There's going to be good food. Obviously, they have full bar downstairs, full bar upstairs. Upstairs, they have the balcony that goes all the way around. Downstairs, they have the 360 bar with the 360 video board. So you can watch this game basically from anywhere that you're sitting in the building. They have the sports simulator bays. Like I mentioned, the food is fantastic. Matt and I had the opportunity to go to Stadium Club earlier in the year when they had first, or earlier in the season when they had first opened. And it's a really sick spot. Looking forward to everyone being there. And I mean, we have a pretty good record at these watch parties, and the Magic playing on ESPN in Boston. We know that there's going to be more energy and effort probably than what we saw tonight, Kev.
Yeah, and you mentioned RSVPs. Please, by all means, if you're planning to go, definitely RSVP. Not that you don't have to do it, you can obviously just show up, but it will help the Magic and us and Stadium Club all kind of have a general idea of how many are going to be showing up. So yeah, you can find the link to that on our social media. Maybe we'll put it in the description of this episode. And so yeah, if you plan to come, which I hope you do, definitely RSVP for us.
And if you need a little bit of a pick-me-up, maybe you have not heard the news quite yet, but Tuesday, Franz Wagner's injury designation was officially updated from out, torn oblique, to out, return to competition, reconditioning. You might have heard that term before a few weeks ago when Paolo was first redesignated with that. And then I went back and counted from the day that Paolo his designation was updated to his return, Kevin, was 15 days. So as you are listening to this, we are more than likely no further than 2 weeks away from Franz Wagner returning. Now, if we look at the schedule coming up, that would put us roughly at January 27th, 30th. We play the Pistons at home. So, well, I guess we played Portland at home on January 23rd, the Pistons on January 25th. Then we're at Miami January 27th, at Portland January 30th, and then at Utah February 1st. For my money, it would probably be during one of those 5 games. Now, some people have mentioned that Franz probably, Paolo played the first 5 games of the season. I don't know that you would say that you're really like in 100% like conditioning shape 5 games into the season. So his conditioning probably was not at its top when he went out. And then because he sat so long, it's probably going to take Paolo longer to get back to the level of conditioning that the Magic wanted him at before bringing him back. Franz being at a higher level, most likely of conditioning, playing in 25 games before he went out, and also not, sitting and being injured as long as Paolo was. Like at the beginning, when they gave us the 4-week timetable for Franz, it was 4 to 6 weeks for Paolo. So we figured the tear was not going to be as bad. And obviously Franz has not missed, 35 games. He's missed 15, 16, 17 games at this point. So logic would say it is not impossible that Franz's reconditioning period is shorter than Paolo's. So maybe we get Franz back in the next 10 to 12 days. I just can't wait for that.
Yeah, it can't come soon enough. The thing with Franz, I think that I hope that he can provide once he comes back, is a little bit of consistency, right? This team is definitely struggling in that department, and you can understand why, right? The guys are down, the guys are missing. It's hard to put together I don't even want to say competent, but a solid enough performance every single night. It's hard to do that with the group that you have. It's possible any night, but it's hard to do it consistently. And so getting Franz back would be a huge step towards some level of consistency. And like we talked about, that's going to, if it happens in this timeline, it could line up pretty well with a decent part of the schedule when it comes to strength of schedule and stuff. And so that would be amazing. I hope it's soon. And I hope he's ready to go when he does come back.
Yeah, it's going to be big. It would be great to have Franz back. It would also be great to have Paolo Banchero back. We'll talk about the injury report in just a moment here. But now, on top of those guys, you're also missing some of your high-level role players as well, which is desperately hurting this team. But that was a nice little surprise on Tuesday to get that news from Franz. And, just looking forward to getting him back. Just want this team healthy. It's great to have Paolo back. But not that our expectations were set too high, because I tried to go into his return without any expectations. But I do think the initial return against Milwaukee got everybody, including myself, maybe a little bit too excited. And he was always going to take some time to get back into rhythm. Not that he's necessarily been terrible, but he's not quite at the point where we can just say, Paolo's going to save us every single night. Tonight wasn't terrible, wasn't his best night. I mean, there's definitely some issues the last couple of games in terms of turnovers, and the handle definitely is one of those things that he's still working to get back at least at game speed. But let's go ahead really quickly, Kevin, and take a look at the state of the Magic. This week so far, just one game since last Sunday. So this week the Magic are 0-1 with the loss to the Bucks on Wednesday, which we will talk about. Now at 23-19, the Magic are sitting at 5th in the East after the loss to Milwaukee. They're 12.5 games back of Cleveland, 6 games back of Boston, 4 games back of New York, a half game back of Milwaukee, just a half game up right now on Indiana, 1 game up on Miami, Detroit, Atlanta, and 4.5 games up on Chicago. Kevin, I wanted to talk about the standings for just a moment here. The Magic being 1 game up, like I mentioned, on Miami, Detroit, and Atlanta. It's probably not super likely that the Magic would lose a game and all 3 of those teams win on the same night, right? But it could happen. It's not going to be tonight. Miami is up 10 on the Lakers right now with 4:50 to go in the second quarter, although I do believe the Magic hold the tiebreaker over Miami right now. I think we're up 2-1 in the season series, if I'm not mistaken. But if we take a look at tomorrow at the 16th, let's see. Okay, we have the Detroit Pistons playing the Pacers. Both of those teams have been playing really well lately, so that'll be interesting to see. But like the Pacers have a chance tomorrow night to pull even with the Magic. The Magic do hold the tiebreaker right now over the Indiana Pacers in their head-to-head. But Atlanta does not play tomorrow. But Kevin, you're basically like a loss away, and a Miami Heat win, a Detroit win, and an Atlanta Hawks win from, I guess the Heat would have to win 2 games at that point. But my point is you are like dangerously close right now to going on a little bit of a skid and seeing yourself in the 9 seed like really quickly. And that's, I don't want to hit the panic button, but that just does not feel great, where for so much of the season we've been saying, look at this team, look how good of a job they've been doing surviving, staying in the 4 seed. Okay, we were the 5 seed for a split second, we're back to the 4 seed. But like in a week's time, you could legitimately be as low as the 8th or the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference. It doesn't make me feel great right now saying that out loud.
Yeah, it's a little dicey right now, but I don't think, for me at least, that changes anything as far as this team still to me has overaccomplished given their circumstances, right? Like obviously they're the teams that are slightly below the Magic, like you said, Miami, Detroit, well really Detroit, Atlanta, especially Indiana as well, really catching fire lately. And maybe getting up more towards where some of those teams we expected them to be in the first place. So yeah, the timing is unfortunate. It all has to do with injuries for me. And the good news is, like you said, in a week's time, the Magic could fall to 9th, but Magic get healthy. Magic have a softer part of their schedule coming up. In another week's time, the Magic could jump right back up to 4th, right? So that's just kind of the state of the Eastern Conference. The other good news for Magic fans is that the Magic still have the next to easiest schedule in the league. I think they're 28th right now. And think about their next 2 games, Boston and Denver. Get those games done, there's a good chance that this team is probably sitting there with the easiest remaining schedule in the league. And so, comparatively speaking, some of the other teams that you just mentioned, Indiana, they have the 23rd. I guess that would be the toughest. So like the 7th easiest schedule remaining. And then outside of that, everyone else is in the top half of hardest schedules. You know, Milwaukee's the 15th, so right in the middle. Miami 16, Atlanta 14, Detroit's 7th hardest schedule. And then I know we're pretty far behind them now, but the Knicks still have the toughest schedule remaining. So there's lots of room for maneuvering up there. Again, get healthy. I think you can make a run. But yes, in the meantime, it is getting a little bit dicey when you look at those standings after each night.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great, but by no means is it all doom and gloom, or is it the end of the world, the end of the season, anything like that. Like you mentioned, a week's time, you could be the 9th seed, and in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you could be, I mean, you actually legitimately could be the 3 seed. Like you're only 4 games back of New York. They go on a little bit of a skid. They're 5-5 in their last 10. You get Franz back, you get Jalen back, you get Paolo back into rhythm, and you're really entering a very winnable stretch here. In your schedule. Like there's not a team that, if we are healthy and when we get into that like Golden State, Sacramento, Denver, I guess it really starts with Miami. That's a 7-game road trip in which you again end the road trip in Denver. But getting Franz back at some point during that stretch, there's just not a team on the schedule for the foreseeable future that really strikes any type of fear into me. Until you get to maybe like February 25th versus Cleveland. So we're talking about a stretch after Boston and Denver. It goes Toronto, Portland, Detroit, Miami, Portland, Utah, Golden State, Sacramento, Denver, San Antonio, Atlanta, Charlotte, Atlanta, Memphis, Washington, Cleveland. So, and then after that, it's Golden State, Toronto, Milwaukee, Houston, Chicago, Minnesota, Cleveland. A little, bit of a tough stretch in the schedule there. And then San Antonio, Houston, Washington, Lakers, Charlotte, Dallas, Sacramento, Clippers, Washington, New Orleans, Atlanta, Boston, Indiana, Atlanta, and then the season's over. So you are getting into like a month and a half stretch of like very winnable games. You've got some tough games in there, but if we can just get these guys healthy, I know at this point of the season that feels like a big if, and we'll get right into the injury report here after we talk about some of the efficiency numbers for the Magic. But yeah, I'm right there with you. It's getting a little bit dicey, but even if it does and you find yourself in the 9 seed, you'll still only be, 3 games back of like the 4 seed and the 5 seed. So if you go on a little bit of run, put a 6 or 7 win streak, 6 or 7 game win streak together, you win 8 out of 10, 9 out of 11, like you're still going to be in really good shape. And we know that this team is capable of doing that. Taking a look at the Magic's efficiencies, heading into Wednesday night's game, they were 28th in offensive rating with an offensive rating of 108.5. And then second in defensive rating, still with a defensive rating of 106.7, and 11th in the league with a positive net rating of 1.8. Speaking of the injury report, taking a look at that for the Magic, Goga Batadze, in the Magic's last game against the Philadelphia 76ers, obviously he suffered the hip contusion, but at some point during that game, he got hit in the head and initially was fine, but over the course of the last couple of days, Jamal Mosley said he started to exhibit some concussion-like symptoms, so they placed him in the concussion protocol just to be safe, so he was out Wednesday night. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who had missed the last game with a left knee strain, he was questionable. He played Wednesday night. Gary Harris still out with the left hamstring strain. Jet Howard was questionable going into Wednesday's game with the left ankle sprain, but he was ruled out. Corey Joseph was questionable due to the illness I'm assuming that Tristan Da Silva had on was that Sunday night that we played? Yeah, Sunday night that we played the 76ers. So he played like 1 second in that game and then came out due to the illness. Corey Joseph was questionable. He played. Jalen Suggs still out with the low back strain, but last couple of games we've seen him back on the bench, so that is a good sign. And then Franz Wagner out. We talked about that, the return to competition reconditioning. And Mo Wagner obviously out for the season with the torn ACL. So you really just need to get guys back at this point in the season, Kev. I know we've been saying that literally for the past, what are we now, 42? So the last, 37 games since Paolo Banchero went out. You've just been waiting for this team to get healthy again, and really looking forward to that.
The Six Man Show is brought to you by Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken, they're bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. They're an amazing company, Central Florida based, obviously, but they're also diehard Orlando Magic fans. They're awesome, and not just awesome culture, but awesome food, whether you're getting the box or the Sando or some of their special offerings they offer from time to time. We promise you won't be disappointed if you go check out Jam Hot Chicken at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square there in Winter Park. Before you go, you can check them out on social media at Jam Hot Chicken, or you can visit their website, jamhotchickenfl.com, to access the menu, order online, and check out all things Jam Hot. They're a big deal. And again, we went to Jam Fest on Saturday. It was amazing to see the turnout, amazing to see like this community, the Magic community, embrace a local restaurant like Jam Hot Chicken. And so, yeah, definitely go check them out. And when you do, let them know that the Six Man Show sent you.
Yeah, Andrew over at Jam Hot, he told us that was the craziest day that they've ever had there. So that was just an awesome turnout. This episode is also brought to you by Chansu, Bill Fulton. What's up, Playoffs 2024? You need to update that to 2025, maybe? Maybe. Michael Martin and Junior Bruce. Who are these folks? These are some of our Hall of Fame and elite tier patrons. They went to patreon.com/The Six Man Show, where for as little as $2 a month, you can also support the show and help us do everything that we do. Watch parties, in-person events, go to games, where we have like our group nights. We've been able to, do this show and make some pretty cool partnerships that allow us to do things like that. Purchase equipment and just pay for things that, it's not free to do this, unfortunately. We would love it to be, but those folks, they help support the show and help us do everything that we do. So we give them a very special shout out each and every episode. And anytime we have a brand new patron, we give them a shout out. So, hey, you listening to this right now, do you want a special shout out? Yes. Are you a patron yet? No. Well, I have good news for you. You go to patreon.com/The Six Man Show. If you join right now, you will get a special shout out on our next episode. So again, much love. Big thanks to all of our patrons. And again, you want to join, head over to patreon.com/The Six Man Show. Let's get back to the episode. So, Kevin, unfortunately, we do have to talk about this game from tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. The best way that I can summarize this, and let me take a look at these stats for us again. The Magic took, 46 threes in this game. They shot 26% from three. The Bucks shot 12 threes in this game. They shot 58.3% from behind the arc. They shot 35 free throws to the Magic's 21. The Bucks shot 62.5% from the floor. The Magic shot 34.7% from the floor. Oh, and the Magic also had 13 turnovers in this game. Milwaukee had 21, but no matter what the Magic did, they just really could not capitalize on those opportunities. The Magic took, how many was it in that first quarter? The Magic took 14 threes in that first quarter, so they were on pace for 52 threes in the game, 6 of 25 from the floor in the first quarter, 2 of 14 from behind the arc, Kevin, and they were down 34-16 after one. And I just don't remember the last time that a game genuinely felt over after the first quarter for the Magic. Just really seemed lethargic on both ends. They also added 4 turnovers in that first half. We're settling for a lot of threes, and we're just like letting Milwaukee, seemingly get to the rim at will. We're not able to guard without fouling, putting the Bucks at the free throw line 9 times in the first quarter. Again, what was it? 35 free throw attempts for the whole game. Like we said at the top, this is one of those games that maybe you watch the film very quickly, you point out some things. Jamal Mosley talked about it after the game. Magic did not play to their standard and just quite frankly got their butts kicked. So it's one of those, hey, you're going to bounce back, and you got another one on Friday, and it's a big one versus Boston. But this wasn't. I don't think this was the hardest game of the season to watch, but it was top 3 or top 4 pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on that last statement when it comes to hardest to watch, because for me, by about the second quarter, it was the easiest to not watch, I think, of the whole season. Like by the time that second quarter rolled around, I was like, this, which is wild, because you and I have sat here on this show and said, don't give up on this team. They're never out of it, blah, 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 which is true. But tonight, they looked so out of it. I want to go back to the percentages.
Like the Knicks game in Orlando where we got blown out, to me, that's still the
yeah,
top
that was painful. Yeah. That was painful. So the Bucks shot, I just have to go back and reiterate what you said. They shot 62.5% from the field. That is really crazy. That is a crazy number. On the season, the team with the highest field goal percentage per game is the Cleveland Cavaliers at 50.2%. So that's the top of the league right now on average. And the Bucks tonight shot 62.5%, 12.5 percentage points better. Crazy stuff. Now, part of that is that Bucks team has some crazy shot makers, right? And so you give them credit for that. But yeah, the other part of it was they just got the shots that they prefer, right? They were able to get whatever, for the most part, whatever they wanted. And when those players get in their spots, good luck, right? So that's part of defending a team like Milwaukee. You have to prevent them from getting to their spots, and the Magic didn't do that tonight. So that was a big part of it. But yeah, offensively for the Magic, it's always going to be a conversation. It's just it's so painful. And I'm glad they mentioned this on the broadcast, because we've talked about it before, and I've always sensed this, like how frustrating it must be for the Magic to on some nights, and I think at the beginning of this night tonight, generate pretty good looks from distance, right? You're moving the ball, you're driving, you're kicking out, you're doing all the things, the extra passes, and nothing will fall, no matter how good of a shot it is. And then you turn around on the other end, and Dame just casually launches a 35-footer and it goes in, right? Like that has to be so demoralizing and frustrating for them. I know it is for me. That's part of what makes it so hard to watch, is just watching other teams just make whatever they want, and the Magic just can't buy a bucket. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I had to take care of a couple of things here at the house with the kids at the start of the third quarter. So as I was, trying to put them back to sleep, I was listening to Jake Chapman on iHeartRadio. And I don't know, I forget if it was Wendell or if it was KCP, but someone missed a 3 in the third quarter. He said, you've just got to make those. Like, you are getting good looks. I mean, in the first half, especially, it felt like there was a lot of settling. as the game went on, Milwaukee was just like, yeah, go ahead, have fun with that. If you guys start to knock those down and make this a game while we're up 30, then maybe we'll wake back up and pay a little bit of attention. But that's just where I'm at this point. And I've been trying to stay optimistic as best as I possibly can throughout the season, because one, it's not always the most productive thing in the world to just panic and complain about the shooting of this team. But we are now 42 games in, and the Magic are still the worst shooting team in the league by a significant margin. The Magic at 36.9 three-point attempts are 18th in the league in attempts per game, and they are dead last in three-point percentage. They're at 30.8% from behind the arc, and this was going into tonight. So, I mean, you're 34% from the floor, and what was it? 26.1% from behind the arc does not help this. So the Magic are creeping closer to 30% from three on the year rather than their 30.8. And the Washington Wizards are 29th in the league at 33.3. So what is that? 2.5 points better. So the gap between us and Washington is basically the gap between Washington and Atlanta, who are 18th in the league. So like 30th in the league isn't, like, being the worst shooting team in the league isn't even doing it justice. If there were another 20 teams in the league, you would probably be the 48th, 49th, or 50th shooting team in the league. That's how bad it's been.
Yeah.
And I keep saying it's going to turn around, it's going to turn around, it's going to turn around. And I just don't know how I can get on here and confidently say that at this point. History would still tell you that over a stretch, not for the second half of the season, but at least for like a non-insignificant stretch, like maybe, 15 or 20 games here, the Magic are going to go on like a stretch where they shoot the ball really well, and will go on a, like we're talking about, win 7 games in a row or win another 12 out of 13 games, like go on a run like that. But it's almost unbelievable how bad this team is shooting. And I don't mean to pick on this guy. I don't mean for this to be any type of personal attack, but you're paying Kentavious Caldwell-Pope $22 million a year. And as of now, through 42 games, he has not lived up to that contract. The defense has been fantastic. I'm not here to take anything away from him on that side. It's been mostly fantastic. Like tonight, Dame had a possession where like KCP was just playing like Olay defense, and he just went right by him. And there are, that does happen from time to time, but Dame is going to do that to everyone from time to time. But you brought this guy in to space the floor and to make threes. And he's shooting 4.9 attempts, and he's shooting 31.8% on the season. Nobody is happy with the way that Caleb Houston is shooting the ball. Caleb Houston is shooting the ball at a higher clip than than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Nobody is happy with the way that Gary Harris is shooting the ball. Gary Harris is shooting the ball at a higher clip than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Hey,
and we can go down the line. Like, there are plenty of guys that are just not shooting the ball well enough. And it's like, what are you going to do, especially with the way that the roster is right now health-wise? Like, you just have to play some of these guys. But like Tristan da Silva, every time the kid shoots, I think it's going in, and he's shooting 30.9% from the floor, from three, excuse me. Cole Anthony, 29.8% from three. Jonathan Isaac, 25.3% from three. Anthony Black, 24.7% from three. Wendell Carter, 20.3% from three. How is it possible that it is this bad for everyone?
So you said something.
I'm sounding the alarm. I am in full panic mode.
I'm going to make it worse. You ready?
Thanks.
You said a moment ago.
Go right ahead.
You said a moment ago, if the NBA were to add 20 teams, the Magic would probably be 48th, whatever. I just pulled up some G League stats, Jonathan. Where do you think the Orlando Magic's 30.7%
probably dead last in the G League?
Dead last in the G League. Yep. The last team in the G League is the Long Island Nets. There's 31 teams in the G League. They're 31st in the G League, and they're shooting 31.9% from three.
So the Magic are
The Magic-
worse than 60 NBA and G League teams.
That's right. They are the 61st ranked professional basketball team in the United States when it comes to shooting the three ball. And could be worse.
It's literally unbelievable.
I don't know if there's other. I'd love to see what the Harlem Globetrotters are shooting. They're probably better than 30.9. So, I don't know. But
in the NBA power
it's rough.
rankings last week or the week before, I forget the gentleman's name that wrote the article, but he pointed out that if the Magic would continue shooting at this clip, it would be the worst shooting season in 12 years. We might be at the 13, 14, 15 year mark by the time that this is all said and done. And it's like, it doesn't logically make sense in my mind that we would continue to shoot the ball this poorly, but I have just seen nothing that we can really point to and be like, you know what? It's going to be okay. The only thing in my mind is that, okay, with Paolo coming back, the looks are going to be better. The looks have been better to a certain degree, and guys are still not making shots. Guys cannot make wide open shots right now. It's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And guys that, for their career, have been at least average shooters. Gary Harris. Caleb Houston is like theoretically a shooter, but has never really been able to prove to do that consistently. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was damn near close to 40% last year, is now barely scraping the bottom of 32%. Jalen Suggs, Tristan Da Silva, Jet Howard, Cole Anthony, Jonathan Isaac. I'm not trying to put like too much of this like towards Anthony Black and Wendell Carter. I don't know that I ever fully believed in those guys as being shooters. But like Jonathan Isaac last year was close to 40%, and to be shooting 25.3%. I have to believe that when Franz and Jalen come back, and we have Franz, Paolo, and Jalen, those guys are going to be getting the best looks that they have consistently all season, and that's when they're going to start to fall. But my goodness, is it just so freaking bad right now?
And here's the
it
other
has
part.
Been all year.
Here's the other part for me is there are people saying make a trade. Okay, what are you gonna do? Trade
you
one
can't
of those
trade
guys?
9 guys.
That's exactly my point, right? Like trading for one person doesn't solve the problem with everyone else, and that's exactly what we said on this show. The episode before Paolo came back, we said yes, Paolo coming back, amazing. It's gonna fix some things, but it is not going to fix all of our problems. This team still has a problem shooting the basketball. And on a night like tonight, when you take 53s, it's really, really going to cost you, right? And when it comes to this game, like at one level, I understand why you take that many. I don't agree with it, but I understand that when you are walking the ball up the court, you see Giannis and Brook Lopez in the paint, right? Like I understand that. But at the same time, like when you're shooting 30.7% from three for the season, you can't shoot 53s in a game. You just can't do it unless you're on fire that night. And the Magic, again, we're not tonight.
Yeah. Really quickly, I just want to say screw Doc Rivers. After the game, he was quoted saying, today I thought whenever, talking about Paolo, that their game plan was to attack Paolo Banchero's dribble. Today, I thought whenever he put it on the floor, you can see our guys, we attacked the dribble. I thought that created some problems. Paolo had 7 turnovers tonight. But to just completely ignore the fact that this kid hasn't played basketball in 2 months and missed 34 games and act like this is some master plan that you devised to like disrupt Paolo Banchero. Like, yeah, we all know the handle isn't like Doc Rivers is just, he's a moron. Everybody knows that he's not a good head coach, that he was carried to his title by the Boston Celtics. And that just fires me up, bro. Like, I cannot stand people that talk trash only when they win games or only when they're up. Like the Luka quote, everybody talks when they're up. Man, that just grinds my freaking gears, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely unreal.
The good news is we won't have to hear Doc too long in the spring because we all know Milwaukee, they're not going to make it too far. So yeah, look forward to that.
I want to talk about Paolo just really briefly. Tonight, 22 points, 8 of 20 from the floor, 2 of 7 from behind the arc, 4 or 5 at the free throw line. Like, Paolo is very clearly still trying to get his legs under him, still trying to find the rhythm. Tonight, I do think, Giannis and Brook Lopez had an effect and a deterrence from guys going to the rim. But like Paolo, he looked great the first game. Last couple of games, it's just been kind of so. And we've talked how that was probably going to be the case when he first comes back. The first probably 8 to 10 games are going to be really up and down for Paolo before he sort of finds that stride again. And to that point, in the last 3 games that he's been back, he's averaging 26 and a half minutes. His minutes restriction initially was set at 26 minutes, but he's scoring 25 points per game, shooting 49% from the floor, 47% from behind the arc, adding 6.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, but it is averaging 5.3 turnovers. Like, I don't know, how often a lot of you hoop, but for those that like used to play like pretty religiously, and then when you don't play for a long time, the very first thing and the hardest thing to get back is the handle. Like if you're not just pounding the rock all the time, ball handling drills, playing, live basketball, it's just hard to get the handle back. And especially Paolo, who is now experiencing like live game speed for the first time in over 2 months. It's going to take him a little bit of time to tighten the handle back up, but he will do that. Like I'm not hitting the panic button on Paolo Banchero. But Paolo Banchero, by the way, across the team is second in 3-point percentage at 38.8% on the year. And then Mo Wagner is at 36% on the year. And of course, you're not going to have him for the rest of the way. But yeah, like just looking at the box score again, Paolo Banchero, 22 points. He was a minus 25, but nobody was really good in this game. Wendell Carter in 32 minutes, had 12 points, 10 rebounds, was 3 of 12 from the floor. And like Giannis, this is the second straight game in a row where we've played him, where if he's hitting those mid-range shots and like those turnarounds, there's really nothing you can do. He had 26 and 11 of 15 from the floor. Dame had 30. He was 13 of 19. When Dame and Giannis combined for 24 of 34, you're not going to win that game. That's just quite that simple. It did feel like there was a certain level of like this team just can't miss, and every team has that 4 to 5 times a year where you're on the other end. There's just not a lot that you can do, and especially when you consider the fact like the amount of guys that were down, the guys that we are asking to play big minutes, like Trevelyan Queen, 27 minutes in this game, Caleb Houston, 24 minutes in this game, like asking those guys to play a ton of minutes. Tristan Da Silva, 22 minutes. He's coming off of that illness. Corey Joseph played 11 and a half minutes in this game. He's dealing with the illness as well. I just would not be shocked if we find out that during this time we had like 6 or 7 guys that were all sort of battling this flu that's seemingly not only going around the league, but all around the country. I talk with clients every day all around the country. Everybody's sick. Everybody's got stuff going on. So again, this is one of those games you're not going to pay a lot of attention to. We're not going to draw like big analytical conclusions, but the analytical conclusions that I am drawing, we have a 42 game sample size now. And it's right. It is truly like almost unfathomable that this team is this bad at shooting the basketball when like theoretically you look at these guys and you say, these are guys that should at least be able to shoot league average from 3. And we just have like 60% of the roster that can't even get to league average right now.
Here's the last thing I'll say about this game. For me, I think the hardest part of this whole season, right, is nights like this. Like it's not losing, right? Like for example, tonight is a perfect example across the league. Okay, the Boston Celtics lost to the Toronto Raptors tonight. Okay, that's a terrible loss for Boston, right? Toronto is terrible. That's their 10th win of the season, right? Terrible loss. The Dallas Mavericks lost to the New Orleans Pelicans tonight. Also, New Orleans' 10th win of the season. That's a bad loss for Dallas. The Knicks went to overtime against the 76ers without Joel Embiid. Now, the Knicks ended up winning, but the Knicks should not be going to overtime with that Sixers team, right? Thought there was one other one. Oh, yeah, the mighty Wembanyama lost to the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh, wait, that's a little bit different. But anyway, what I'm saying is, like,
did you see that windmill the other night? Oh, man.
Did you see that he went 5 of 19 from the field tonight? Yeah, exactly. Or whatever he did. I don't know what it was.
People,
it was bad.
I commented underneath the NBA's post. I said, y'all are not seriously hyping this up. Yeah. Like, it literally looked like me doing a windmill on my kid's little tyke hoop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it was whatever. We all get it. It's impressive that he's 8 feet tall and, has a 37-foot, or size shoe, whatever it is. But like, if you're getting excited about that dunk, good grief, man. Like, find something else to do.
So my point is, bad losses are not unheard of in the NBA. It's an 82-game season. You're going to have bad losses. You're going to lose to teams you shouldn't. You're going to get blown out in games. The hard part for me is like the night. It all comes back to the shooting, obviously, but those teams, when they have a bad night, it's because they had a bad night shooting. It's because they had a bad whistle. It's because guys weren't feeling well. It's all those things. For us, it is so consistently about the shooting. And then we just have to hope that every other thing goes our way. That feels like that is, more often than not, that is the only way this team can win. We know we're not going to shoot well, so every other aspect of the game of basketball has to go our way, right? We have to get to the foul line. We have to be able to defend. We have to limit our turnovers. We have to get a good whistle. All those things have to come together to get a win, and I think that's what's so exhausting, right? I talked about at the very top, like the consistency of it all. Like it's impossible to find consistency given this current situation, but that's what has made, I think, this season such a roller coaster, at least for me, because yes, the Magic are over 500. Yes, we've had some amazing moments. Yes, all those things, but also I'm kind of exhausted after most games. Just like, man, every night is a battle. And so does health help that? I'd like to think so, but like you said, there are 9 guys or whatever it is on this team that are just not shooting the basketball as they should. And does that get fixed when we're healthy? I really don't know anymore.
Bobby Marks of ESPN put out an article, I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, like talking about like some of his like trade ideas for the trade deadline. One of his ideas, I hope I don't misquote this, but I believe it was Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, our 2026 first round pick, and like a 2027 first round pick swap that would be like top 10 protected. So, I mean, the odds are that the Magic would most likely keep their pick unless, Brooklyn like gets really good, a couple of years from now, which probably isn't going to happen really quickly. I think I would probably do it, and the deal was for Cam Johnson. I think at this point I would probably do that.
Yeah, I would. Sign me up. Like the potential for him to open up the floor even more for guys like Paolo and Franz, but also to just be a knockdown shooter is huge. At the same time, though, I'm scared for Cam Johnson. Like, if that were to happen, does he come to Orlando and become another statistic of guys that used to be able to shoot the basketball and they come to Orlando and can't shoot anymore? Like, it's so strange to me. And I wish I knew more about the ins and outs of not just the NBA, but I was never a high-level basketball player, right? So I can't sit here and speak to shooting mechanics and warm-ups and shoot-arounds and getting up 1,000 shots. I can't speak to any of that, but I'm just like, it makes you wonder, right? Like, is there something this team is doing or isn't doing that is contributing to this? I just have no idea. But it's definitely strange, and especially because it's not just a one-off, right? It's not like, oh, this year, this team sucks at shooting the basketball. It's like, no, this team has not been able to shoot the basketball for many years. So it's all strange, and ultimately it's just painful to watch most nights.
Yeah, so here's the full trade. The Magic would get Cam Johnson, Keon Johnson, adding some
both.
Johnsons. So we would have multiple Johnsons, multiple Wagners on the team. The Nets would get Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, Orlando's 2026 first round, top 12 protected, 2027 first round pick swap, top 10 protected. 2 years from now, does Brooklyn want to swap their pick with the Magic? I would guess probably not. And then a 2028 second round pick, which is more favorable of the Lakers or the Wizards. The issue, however, comes into Cam Johnson's contract,
yeah,
because next season he is owed $20.5 million and $22.5 million the following year, which would not only make the Magic a tax team, but also put us over the first apron. And he also has $4.5 million in unlikely bonuses that do count against the apron. So you're like locking yourself into that roster at that point, for the next couple of years without a lot of wiggle room at that point due to the next collective bargaining agreement. But adding a guy like Cam Johnson, who can legitimately come and give you 20 points off the bench on any given night and should give a boost, in terms of shooting, in terms of healthier than Gary Harris, it gives you, a more defense than Cole Anthony, given his ability and given his size. I think he also fits like the Orlando Magic archetype, what they look for at that position a little bit better than some of those guys. So then we're looking at a second unit of Anthony Black, Cam Johnson, or Tristan Da Silva, whoever you want to play at the 2, and then Jonathan Isaac and Wendell Carter Jr. I think I would probably do that at this point. It gives you the bench scoring that you need. It gives you more shooting off the bench. But if this team decides they don't want to do that because of the salary and tax implications, I kind of understand that as well, but I would definitely not be against a move that helps bolster the bench scoring and also helps improve the shooting. We're not very, I forget how many days it is till the trade deadline, but we're closing in on that pretty quickly. And if the Magic can facilitate a move like that, not necessarily for Cam Johnson, but allows you to add bench scoring and allow you to add shooting and just give this team a little bit of juice, that's something, Kevin, that it feels like we desperately need.
Yeah, 3 weeks from today. That's the trade deadline, February 6th. So, we're getting close. I know I've come on this show many times in the last year and some change and said, hey, this season is not about this season, right? We're looking to the future, right? The Paolo and Franz prime windows, we're still 2, 3, 4 years away from that. I've said that many times. Sometimes people have agreed, sometimes people have disagreed. That's totally fine. With that being said, I just don't, I can't imagine Jeff Weltman and Anthony Parker looking at the state of this team offensively, strictly speaking, only offensively, how they can look at the state of this team and decide, yeah, let's stick with this the rest of the year. I feel like they have to think that something has to change. Now, I think drastic, but you have to think they think this team needs a shot in the arm. I would just, but at the same time, a move would really surprise me just because it would potentially, counter what they've said and shown for the last couple of years. So I don't know, man. It's, to me, I feel like we're crying out for some more offense, but will that happen in the next 3 weeks? I'm really not sure.
And I think they could, somewhat reasonably talk themselves into the shot in the arm, just getting these guys healthy, getting Franz back, getting Jalen back, But on the other hand, I just cannot be convinced that if we're able to get these guys healthy, and I do think there's going to be somewhat to figuring out exactly how Paolo and Franz can perfectly coexist. They've never had an issue sharing the floor together, but getting Franz closer to the point where he's able to and has the freedom and the ball enough to make the kind of impact that he was making before. I think what that eventually looks like is those guys just being staggered a lot more. Paolo getting a lot of time with the bench unit, Franz getting a lot of time with the bench unit. Obviously, end to the half, end of the game, both of those guys are on the floor together a lot. But getting those guys so that they're both averaging 25 plus points per game, and then just figuring out the shooting, give those guys a league average team, from behind the arc, and you just cannot convince me that this East, I don't want to say wide open, but it's not an impenetrable thing, right? I genuinely believe you get those guys to play at the level that they're capable of, put league average 3-point shooting around them, and this team will find their way into the Eastern Conference Finals. So if they one way or the other, they decide we're going to stand pat, we're just going to get healthy and see what happens, or even if we get healthy, we need to make a change here, and if we can make an improvement to the roster, we're going to do it. I don't see how you can really argue with either of those, paths. So, all right, Kev, what do you say we wrap this one up?
Please.
Let's do it. All right, folks. We will hopefully see you Friday. I will be there. Kevin will not be there, but a lot of our team will be there on Friday at the Stadium Club over at Caribe Royale Orlando for the watch party. Magic versus the Celtics come out to that. It's going to be a lot of fun, going to be a good time. But that is going to do it for this one. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to the Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!